viewers. This is a video review of the Herman Miller Mirra 2 Ergonomic Task Chair. Now if you haven't already seen it, feel free to go and check out my video review of the Herman Miller Embody Chair as well. And I did also use a Herman Miller Aeron as well for about 10 years. I don't own it anymore, but I did have extensive experience with that as well. So I'll be referencing the Aeron and the Embody here and there throughout this review. So this, again, is the Mirra 2. It's the successor to the original Mirra chair, which Herman Miller still actually sells to this day, either on their website or through their dealers. Now, originally the Mirra was conceived to be a cheaper version of the Aeron. And one of the things that they did with it was instead of using a mesh back like the Aeron, they used a hard, rigid plastic back. So that was probably the big cost-cutting feature that they did with it. The other interesting thing they did with the Mirra compared to the Aeron was that with the Aeron, when you're buying an Aeron, you're locked into one of three sizes. You either have to buy size A, size B, or size C, with A being the smallest and C being the largest. And if you didn't pick the right size right from the get-go, you would end up with an Aeron that was probably going to be uncomfortable for you long-term. With the Mirra though, Herman Miller actually made it more universal, where they basically added a whole bunch of adjustments that allowed you to just kind of dial in the chair to fit your individual body. So you didn't have to go through the size A, B, C thing. You just picked one chair and you just adjust it to yourself. And as it turns out, a lot of people liked that, and the Mirra ended up in its own right being a great seller that some people actually strongly preferred over the Aeron. And so here we are. Now we have a successor to it, the Mirra 2. The Mirra and the Mirra 2, it was designed by Studio 7.5 in Germany, so called because they originally wanted to be sort of like a roaming design studio, and they wanted to do it out of a 7.5-ton truck, but that didn't pan out for them, I guess. So they have a permanent spot somewhere in Germany now, a permanent design studio, and they were the original designers of the Mirra as well as the Mirra 2. Now I haven't actually sat or used a Mirra, or the original Mirra before. So this is my first time using a Mirra of any sort, and so I can't really explain what the differences are directly. But just based on reading reviews and what I see visually, I'll try to mention some differences that I think are obvious. So I guess let's go over. Actually, before we go over the chair, let's just go over pricing. Because Herman Miller chairs can be a sticker shock for some people. They're not cheap, but as I said in my Embody review, you kind of have to just consider these chairs as an investment in your health, especially if you actually have pains anywhere in your body related to sitting all day long for 8 hours a day or longer. If you consider the cost of these chairs, but then you multiply it by the number of years you'll be using it, and even their warranties, they come with like 10 or 12-year warranties. So at the end of the day, it's like pennies per day, really, or just a couple cents a day. And it's really well worth splurging on a high-end ergonomic task chair. And so the Mirra 2, you can get it extremely stripped down to where it has no arms, and where pretty much the only thing you can do is just raise it up and down. Now, I don't know why you would want to buy that. I mean, if you're going to buy something like that, you might as well just buy something from your big box store that would actually be more adjustable than that even. So I really don't recommend you go for the base level version of this. I mean, that starts at about 550, I think, something like that. So I would strongly recommend at a minimum that you get all the various adjustment features that you can add on. And once you do all that, you're basically looking at about It's about $850 around there, $850. And then beyond that, you're basically adding just visual features that may or may not matter to you. But at a minimum, you know, for a fully loaded adjustable Mirra 2, you're going to be looking at about $850. So I mean, it's a lot of money, but you know, I think it's if you're having health issues as far as like back pain and whatnot, it's probably gonna be well worth it for you. So okay, so let's go over this shirt visually. In terms of what I got, so I got was essentially just black on black with white accents. Again, for me, I wanted something, I mean, I'm just using it at home, so I wanted something that was visually striking, that would kind of stick out a little. So I figured this, you know, it's classic enough, but also kind of unique looking. Let's see. So the back, there's two versions of the back that you can buy with the Mirra 2. One is called the Triflex back, which is the basic model, and it's basically the same as the original Mirra, the Mirra 1. I would just start calling it the Mirra 1 in this review. The original Mirra, the Mirra 1, basically just had this, which you see in the back, which is this hard plastic net. With the Mirra 1, this was all you had. You didn't have what looked this sort of like a cloth looking back here. So you can continue that option here with the Mirra 2 if you want. You can opt it out where you just have this hard plastic back. The new feature that they added with the Mirra 2 is what they call now the butterfly back, the butterfly suspension back, where they basically added a layer of cloth over this hard plastic back here. So it makes it, you know, it gives it just a little bit more comfort. But for the most part, you're still talking about a chair that's going to feel pretty stiff and rigid in the back because it's just a hard piece of plastic. And one thing that they make a big deal about is that they have to develop a way to bond this cloth to this hard plastic back, which, as you can see, has a lot of holes. So interesting enough, it's sort of glued together, and yet at the same time you're not seeing big blobs of glue anywhere. So I don't know what that process was, but they're pretty proud of it, and I have to say it works. There's nothing messy sticking out anywhere to show that they sort of glued the two together, if it's even glue at all. I would actually, it's an $80 upgrade to add this cloth layer, the butterfly back layer, but I would highly recommend you doing it because otherwise you're going to be sitting on a piece of hard plastic. So I think that upgrade, it's worth it. The seat pan, I just got a basic black seat pan. It's pretty rigid, pretty stiff. So they call it Aireweave. They call this an Aireweave suspension seat. I think it is sort of different from the original pellicle that was used in the Aeron. I think the Aeron had sort of like this bigger, it's like these cloth strips that are woven throughout the seat, whereas with this, you can still see that there's some cloth strips woven into the seat, but it's finer. It's not so thick and obvious. So it looks like there's mesh wires going horizontally, and then vertically there's those little cloth strips woven in. And so the seat itself it's pretty, one thing, Herman Miller was kind of the original makers of, I think, of the mesh chair, at least the one that really made a commercially successful one with the Aeron. So they really know how to do their mesh really, really well. It's pulled really tight, unlike the cheap stuff you see at big box stores, the cheap mesh chairs there that sag. It's pulled really tight. It's not gonna sag, and it's also fairly silky smooth. Doesn't feel rough. I mean, the stuff that I've sat in the big box stores, the mesh chairs there, it's like sitting on sandpaper. So they definitely, Herman Miller definitely does a really good job with their mesh. So this is pretty nice. And then I opted for a white frame, which which extends to this back as well. And it's actually just two options. You either get this odd black or white. And again, I wanted this to stick out a little, so I chose the white. You can choose the black if you need a more subtle look to blend with an office or something. The last thing I added to this chair visually was I chose what they call a semi-polished aluminum frame, which unfortunately it's a very expensive upgrade. But the big reason I chose to go with it, was because if you look at the base model of the Mirra, which comes with the basic base, it's sort of the legs are sort of just flat. It's very flat and low to the ground, which I personally thought looked kind of strange on the Mirra 2. And whereas with the semi-polished aluminum frame, it's sort of raised upwards, so it's like raised up, whereas the basic base is like just flat. So I really thought that the Mirra 2 looked a lot better with this base over that stock one, which is just flat. The other thing was that by going with the white frame, the base would get painted in this sort of the metal base would get painted with a sort of like it's like this dull looking battleship gray paint. And when I saw some real life pictures of it, I just was not impressed. It looked really ugly to me. So in the case of the Mirra 2, I decided to splurge and go with the semi-polished aluminum frame. So in real life, it's pretty much what they say. It is semi-polished. It's not polished with such a finish that you can see reflection. It is kind of dull, and you can tell that it's kind of dull. So yeah, it is what they say it is. My only complaint about that is that part of the frame does extend into this area behind here, which you probably can't see, but underneath here, the aluminum frame is not finished, and it's actually kind of noticeable. It's not like it's completely hidden. Of course, you won't see it if you're sitting on the chair, but I was surprised to find that under here it was not finished, and it's actually very raw and rough looking. So kind of wish especially for what it costs. I mean, this frame adds $250 on to the cost of the chair. So for what it costs, I really wish they had finished this inside part of the frame. It's that thing about pride in craftsmanship. Like Steve Jobs' father taught him. You finish the inside of the cabinet as well as the outside, even if no one's gonna look on the inside. Just pride of craftsmanship. That was kind of missing here. But anyways, Herman Miller did recently, as of I think January 2015, they added a new option where I think they call it an H alloy base or something like that, where you can sort of get the same lifted base look, and instead of being semi-polished, I think it's a painted base, and that instead of costing $250 costs like I think $120 or something. It was a lot cheaper than this, and if they had made that available originally, I probably would have ordered that, but it wasn't available when I ordered it, so I just had to go with the semi-polished finish. And then my casters are the casters that work on both hard floor and carpet, but they're pretty plain, basic, but it works. It rolls pretty smoothly in carpet. I don't have any issues with it snagging or anything. So, and then armrests. Normally, if you choose a white frame, the armrest would be white, but since that's the one section I'm touching all the time, I figured it'd probably get dirty really easy if it was a white arm pad, so I chose the black arm pads instead, which also gives it a nice contrast, I think, with the white frame. But anyways, I think that's pretty much it as far as, you know, the chair visually. So we'll move on to the features. So in terms of features, this Mirra 2 here, it's fully loaded. I got every possible option you could get on it in terms of adjustments. So let's see. So over here in the front, there's a seat depth adjuster that you can. It's a button that it's sort of a wide button that you push down, and then you can ratchet your seat pan, the depth downward or up. This big knob here, it controls how much tilt tension you have as you're leaning back. You can tighten it or loosen it. This paddle here raises or lowers your chair, pretty standard fare. And then you have two additional paddles here, down here. One controls, one locks your tilt so that you cannot tilt back. The other actually lets you do a forward recline, where instead of being flat like this, you'll actually be able to lean your chair forward, which is actually a feature that's missing on the Embody, and some people were surprised that it was missing, and they would have preferred that Embody had it. So the Aeron and the Mirra and Mirra 2 all have this as an option, the forward tilt. Your armrests can go up, down. They're also 4D armrests, so they can actually go forward, back, left, and right, as well as up and down. So they're pretty nice in that regard. They're very adjustable, and you can also tilt them in and out as well. And lastly, you have this piece in the back, which is the lumbar support. You can adjust the lumbar both in height and in depth, so you can move it in and out as well. So let's go over each feature individually once again. So the seat depth adjustment. Again, I kind of wish that Herman Miller had done a seat depth adjustment where the seat pan is actually on a slider and you can move the whole seat back and forth. But this one, it's not too bad, and I will say it's a lot better built than the one that I was using on the Embody. This one feels really solid, and it has like it's sort of like a full, if I remember, it's like a full piston spring-loaded system. It's definitely spring-loaded, and it's basically you just hit this button at the bottom, and you just tilt it downward as needed. And you can just kind of bring it up. And so there's distinct steps, and you can kind of hear that big clicking noise. Feels like I think there's like 5 steps that you can bring it up to. But it definitely goes, you can definitely get a pretty good amount of depth adjustment, I think. I'm 5'9", and it can get too much for me, so I actually have to bring it down a little myself. So it's actually pretty nice, but again, I wish it was a full slider system, because if you notice, there's a pretty big gap back here, and in my case, I actually wish that I could scoot the seat pan up against the back a little bit more. Because actually, there is actually one last feature, I guess, that I forgot to mention earlier. Because it's not really an active feature; it's a passive feature. On the original Mirra, it was advertised pretty heavily, but on the Mirra 2, they mention it, but they kind of gloss over it. It's on the bottom of the chair here. There's a big hump, and it's what they call a posture fit. A passive posture fit, and it's basically designed so that when you're sitting, it sort of tucks itself into the your upper pelvis area, so that in theory, if you're sitting in a sort of intensive position, you don't end up slouching like that. It's meant to kind of naturally force your back into like this upright position. So I can feel it working, but it does require that I really park my butt way back in the chair. And that's kind of where I wish I could slide the seat pan further back to eliminate this gap that's back here. But it is what it is, I guess. And I mean, more often than not, I don't feel it for me. I guess depending on maybe how curved your back is or whatnot, you may, or even how tall or short you are, you may or may not feel that passive posture fit feature, but it is there. So that's the seat depth. This big knob here is it just controls your tilt tension again. You turn it this way, it gets stiffer. You turn it this way, it gets looser. And again, it's an infinite system. It's an infinite tension system where, similar to the embody and the Airon, you could turn it as much as you want, and you can really dial it in to exactly how much tension you want. You can get it to be you can get it to be very, very loose or very, very tight. And you can get it to be, very, very balanced for your weight and whatnot. And I will say, the great thing about Herman Miller's tension systems is that they're very smooth. On the Mirra too, it's one of the, I think it's a synchro tilt system. So as you tilt back, the seat pan tilts up slightly to kind of, I guess, keep your your bottom in to prevent the pressure from your knees, and it's just to keep the angle of your legs and backs together. Anyways, let's see what else is there. Okay, so the arms. The arms can be adjusted, again, in 4 directions. You can push them forward, here, and then you can go left and right. You can also tilt them in and out. And then you can also raise or lower them using this paddle here, like this, and then you can ratchet it up or down. And there's very distinct clicks that you can put it at, then lock it. So these arms are very, very adjustable. I think you can pretty much get them to whatever height or width that you need it at. I think for me personally, I would actually prefer that it go even closer. The embodies could definitely go closer than this. To me, even at its narrow setting, it feels, depending on what I'm doing, it feels a little wide still. The top, it's coated with vinyl again, so nothing special. And also, the other thing is, I mean, if you measure it, the size of it, it looks like it's more than big enough, but when I actually use it, I feel like I could use, I kind of wish that it was a bigger arm pad somehow. And I think that impression is because of how this arm pad is heavily curved. So in reality, you kind of, as you're resting your arm on it, I guess you're not fully using the whole amount, the entire amount of space, because you're only resting on whatever portion is, hitting your arm. So I do wish that the arm rest was actually maybe a little bit, and I guess I just wish that it was flat, not so curvy. The other thing about it is that it's very stiff. There's not a whole lot of give to it. I've actually had some instances of where my elbow kind of fell asleep and just kind of got numb because it's just like such a stiff arm pad. So used to something cushier here, you might not like these arm pads, but you know, they function, they work. And I mean, there's a slight bit of play here, but not nearly as bad as what I felt on the body, where it was rattling pretty badly. With this, I think there's just enough play that you can kind of move the arms around without it getting snagged or stuck. So that's the arms, and you know, they're not too bad in the grand scheme of things. It's a pretty solid setup compared to what was on the body. I mean, once you ratchet things down, they don't really move or anything. Let's see. Oh, okay. So the seat tilt lock. So let's see. So you can have your upright position, which is this. If you pull it all the way up, it locks you in place like this. Again, there's still a little bit of play there, but I guess maybe that's done on purpose because maybe Herman Miller doesn't want you to accidentally break your chair if you just plop down on it. So so there's a bit of play here, just so that if you do plop down on your chair, it doesn't just break something. One thing I didn't realize when I was buying a chair was just that this is actually just a two-step tilt limiter. I kind of hoped that it had more than that because I'm used to both my current chair is a steel case sleeve, which has 5 steps, and body had 5 steps. So I kind of thought that this would have been a 5-step tilt limiter as well, but it's only 2 steps, and there are definitely times when I wish there was something in between. So the first step kind of just takes you down here, and then the second step is full recline. So I kind of wish sometimes I wish there was something like maybe right around here or something. Mainly in the lower parts of the recline. That's kind of where I wish that it had some extra stoppers. But again, it is what it is. Just be aware that it is just a 2-step limiter. This panel here again, it's the front, the seat, to tilt the seat forward, the forward tilt limiter. So if you tilt back a little, and then you tilt it down, you'll be able to actually tilt the whole chair forward like this. And then what you can also do from there is actually, once you do that, you can actually activate your recline lock all the way up, and it locks your chair into this forward position so that you can kind of go like this, I guess, over your keyboard if you like to sit like that over your keyboard. I guess it's more so that you can kind of maintain a healthy posture over your keyboard versus going like this over your keyboard. I guess truth be told, I didn't really need this feature because I never used the Aeron or this chair like this. So, but I did recall on the Aeron, by having this feature added, that you can sort of almost treat it like a rocking chair. So where your chair actually now, if you activate that front tilt, you open it up and let it go, and then you also activate your recline, you can kind of in a sort of rocking chair where it just rocks back and forth completely. So even then, I think I got more for that. Versus, otherwise you kind of get locked like that. So activating it, I do leave it activated for that reason. It just lets you rock forward a little bit more smoothly. That's that. And then I guess lastly is you have your lumbar support. So your lumbar support can go up or down, like so. And then you can also adjust your depth by twisting these knobs back here. So if you twist it up, it loosens it up, and if you twist it down, it tightens it up. And and there's distinct clicks as well here. The only thing I'd mention in being a little OCD about this, but between each step there's a lot of play. So if you're trying to get it to line up or whatever, you know, visually, you might have some trouble with that. But yeah, again, that's just being OCD about details. Yeah, in terms of how it feels, when I looked at it originally, I thought that it wasn't going to do much because of how thin and just how flexible it looked. I didn't think it was really going to provide any true lumbar support. And there are times when I do wish that it had more depth than what it has, but nonetheless, it's surprisingly actually quite stiff. You can definitely feel it if you crank it up all the way. So yeah, I was actually surprised. It's a good lumbar support, and it does work. Now, one thing I've discovered with it is that depending on how high you have the tension of the lumbar support, it can actually affect the feeling of the entire back. If you crank it all the way up, it actually will in turn also kind of stiffen the upper back as well. Whereas if you leave it loose, it actually loosens up the entire back. So depending on what I'm feeling, more if I'm upright like this, usually I'll increase the tension. But if I'm reclining, where I'm putting my full weight into the back, I'll usually decrease it because yeah, it's so that there's just a little bit more give, just to make the back feel a little softer. So I think that's it for the features. So I guess we can go over some pros and cons again about this chair. So the pros is that it's, I mean, when Herman Miller designed this chair, they designed it to be sort of a visually light chair, they say, and I think they succeeded with that because it does look visually light and slim. In fact, my favorite, I mean, looking at this chair, my favorite profile is the side profile because you can see how razor thin everything looks, and just the underneath the chair looks kind of uncluttered. So it visually does look light, as they say, and it's also literally light. It's one of the lightest. I mean, for such a relatively big chair, it's one of the lightest chairs I've ever had to move around. I think the stated weight, I don't know if I trust it, but the stated weight of this chair is only supposed to be like 21 pounds on Herman Miller's website, and the shipped weight was 48 pounds, compared to say the Embody, which was like had a shipped weight of 60 something pounds, and the chair felt like it was like in the 50-pound range. So this is a light chair, and if you like having a light chair, then this would be great. And then also, I guess this is a sort of pro and a con. For me, it's actually a con, but depending on your back needs, it might be a pro. But the back, I mean, again, it's just a hard piece of plastic, so it provides a ton of back support if you need that sort of firm support. But for me, I don't know, it might actually become a deal breaker because it's incredibly stiff and hard. If you sit in this chair long term, especially in a reclined state, over time this back does kind of start adding some pressure points to the back, just simply because you're sitting on a hard piece of plastic. So it's one of those things that you should try to, if you can, check it on person and sit in it long term, because again, it's sort of one of those unexpected things that you only discover after you've had the chair for a while, is that this back can be brutally stiff long term, but but for some people they might actually like that, because they, if you like your bed's firm or whatever, then you might like the firm back. And what you're definitely not going to get is, you're not going to get any sort of sagging. So if you're if you don't like chairs that have a soft back because it starts making you sag into the seat, then this chair definitely won't do that to you, because it's just so stiff that you'll easily be able to keep your back upright all the time. So that might be a pro. I guess for me it's a con though, but it's worth mentioning as a pro. In terms of airflow, I mean it has its mesh on the bottom, and then the back has its cloth with these gigantic holes. So I will say that this chair you don't ever feel you don't feel hot or anything. It's pretty temperature neutral. It's also not going to feel cold either when you sit on it. So it's definitely different from sitting on, like, say, the Embody, which had full cloth, or even my current Steelcase Sleep, which is leather, and that chair actually gets noticeably hot. When I jump to this chair, it's like when I jump to this chair, the Mirra 2 from the Leap, it's definitely just like instantly, just like an instant cool down. So the mesh is definitely nice on this chair, and also just the build quality of this chair. I find that it's considerably higher and built to better tolerances than Body was, which is surprising given the price point and the fact that the Body is supposed to be the flagship chair for Herman Miller. But if you try to rattle this, it just doesn't rattle. There's no squeaks, no creaks, nothing. And most of the parts are very, very solid and just well put together. The only part that rattles, in fact, is this. You can get a little bit of rattling also if you keep your lumbar support loose. This will rattle a little, but that's because it's just full loose, and if you actually put your weight on it, it stops rattling for the most part. If you increase your tension, you definitely don't get any rattling back here. So it's a very well built chair, I have to say. I mean, big difference from a big box store chair for sure. And even compared to Herman Miller's own Embody, surprisingly big difference in build quality. So I guess that's the pros. Yeah, not too much. There's not too much to go into here in terms of pros and cons, I guess. The cons again for me would be the stiffness of the seat back. And I guess another one is actually, so Herman, I mean, when they designed this chair, they cut all these big holes here in the back. I guess one for the looks and two for, they say it's meant to optimally support your back, I guess, in your various pressure points and whatnot, as well as just for cooling purposes, to keep your body cool. But I actually find that because these holes are so big, and I'm sort of a skinny guy, so I've had instances where when I lean back, I can actually feel either my skin or my spine actually getting pinched into those holes because they're so big. So I guess in my case, I would have actually preferred that they had used the finer holes in the back instead of these big, gigantic gaping holes. And then I already mentioned a bit about the armrest, but I do wish that they were softer. And I guess lastly is that this lip here, all around the chair, as well as even the side area here, they're all made out of a very stiff plastic. It's not soft and bendable like it was on the, say, the Embody. So you definitely don't want to try to do this or anything, like sit with your legs on the side, because it's going to be painful. So I was surprised. I mean, I thought this was going to be more of a like a soft touch rubber feel, but it's a hard plastic. And in fact, for that matter, even the back, I kind of thought that it was going to be a soft touch rubber sort of a feel, but it's hard plastic. So yeah, these two areas of the chair are very stiff. Guess the other thing I'd mention, and this is comparing the Mirra 1 to the 2, is the design of this back here. On the Mirra 1, they actually had it where it was just a fork and it stopped right here. There was this part here where it closes the loop. This did not exist on the Mirra 1. But it's now on the Mirra 2, where they designed it to have this kind of rounded loop here. Now I haven't actually sat in the Mirra 1, but I suspect that that I think the Mirra 1's back might have actually been more comfortable, because by closing this loop up here, I mean, and again, I'm 5'9", but because they added this section up here, I can actually feel this rigid back now up against my upper back near the shoulder area. Whereas with the Mirra 1, it stopped right here, so the back was completely open, and I have a feeling it might have been a little more flexible. I definitely think it would have been more flexible around the shoulder area, which you know, they advertise the Mirra 2 as being kind of a flexible chair, but it's really not flexible at all in reality. I mean, you really can't bend it at all or anything. I mean, it's pretty different from the body, where the back was really flexible and bendable. With this, you really can't bend it at all. And I think a lot of it is because of this frame. So in terms of design, I think it would have actually been better if they just left it right up to here and stopped. But I guess they wanted to try this this loop thing, this closed loop, as a new design direction. So yeah, it is what it is with that. Other than that, I think that's it for this, for the Mirra 2. There's actually less to discuss about it than the Embody, because I think it's inherently a less complex chair. Which I guess leads me to my next point, is you know, if you sit in the Mirra 2 or you sit in the Airon, they're not gonna feel that. I mean, at least to me, when I originally sat in the Airon back when it was a big deal, like it was the chair 10-15 years ago or so, it didn't feel that special to me. I mean, I sat in it and I was like, okay, well, I'm not feeling why it costs so much and whatnot. It felt kind of, it was sort of a disappointing experience. And for the most part, there were times when I actually went back to just like basic leather chairs, and I thought they were more comfortable back then. Similarly with the Mirra 2, when I sit in it, I don't get a big wow experience out of it. And you can ergonomically, you can dial in, you know, there's all these adjustments that you can do to dial it into your body, but for the most part, it feels kind of like a typical chair when you sit in it. And for that matter, it feels like a very stiff chair that I think most people that sit in it would be kind of surprised at what it costs, is because it's just sort of stiff, or it's stiffer than normal even. Now this is in comparison to the Embody, I guess. The Embody, when I sat in it, that chair truly felt unique and different. Like with that, I could kind of see why it costed so much. You know, it was truly a different sitting experience compared to sitting in the Airon or the Mirra 2. So I guess, you know, if you're looking for something, you know, like just like a more unique sitting experience, I would highly recommend trying the Embody first. I mean, it may or may not ergonomically work out for you. It didn't work out for me ergonomically. More on the comfort side, I guess, not so much ergonomically. But yeah, if it can ergonomically fit you and you want something that's unique, I would definitely say try the Embody first and foremost. The Mirra 2 may or may not work for you as well, and it's a beautiful chair in its own right as well. It's beautifully designed and very well made, but I just don't feel like it's a unique sitting experience, and it's not exactly wowing me, hard back aside. So I think that's it. In terms of buying it, I bought this directly from Herman Miller during their they have 2 annual sales every year. One is during the summer, and one is on Black Friday. It starts the week of Black Friday, And I think in both cases it goes for about 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. And you get a 15% discount on everything. And that discount actually extends to all the authorized dealers as well at the same time. So if you want a Herman Miller piece of furniture, whether it be a desk or any of their task chairs, I highly recommend you buy it during that time period, because you'll get 15% off, and that amounts to like, you know, a couple $100 depending on what you're doing, what you're opting it out as. And then also, in ordering the Mirra 2 from Herman Miller, it got free shipping thrown in, which is a big deal for me being in Hawaii. If you're on the mainland, then there might be some other authorized dealers that can throw in free shipping as well to the continental US, but at least for me in Hawaii, buying directly from Herman Miller and getting the free shipping was a pretty big deal for me. The other thing is, if you're interested in the Mirra 2 specifically, is you better be ready to be very patient, because for whatever reason Herman Miller has a 6-week wait time on the Mirra 2, and that's not including the shipping time. So it's going to take 6 weeks before they start building your chair, and then it takes about a week for them to build the chair and then actually ship it out. So, I mean, in my case, including the shipping, I was waiting, I think, like 7 to 8 weeks before I finally got it. So I guess in my case, it's a little disappointing that I waited all the time and I got it, and it's not quite what I imagined, I guess, it to be. So for myself personally, I'm kind of on the fence as to whether I'll keep it or not. But I still wanted to just go ahead and make this review, because there's no in-depth review, I think, right now out there on the Mirra 2 that goes really in depth on the features. But anyways, I think that's it. So again, this is a video review of the Herman Miller Mirra 2 chair, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it below. Thank you for watching.